Okay, guys, we are fixing to go over another ghost story slash urban legend from North Carolina. This is Donnie, and I'm here with Sandra.
Hello, everybody.
And we are currently at Spring-Made Mountain.
Spring-Made Mountain Campground and Resort.
I keep on wanting to say South-Made, or for some reason I keep wanting to go into the south instead of saying Spring-Made. But we are at Spring-Made Mountain Campground and Resort in Mitchell County.
It is in Spruce Pine, North Carolina.
Spruce Pine, North Carolina, which is real close to Bear Den, which is now called Spacious Skies. That's a really neat campground if you guys ever get a chance to see that also. But guys, we're going to talk about another wild story here, and this one here comes from www.northcarolinaghost.com, www.northcarolinaghost.com, and it has this one along with a bunch of other spooky stories. But we are currently, how many counties does this make us? Is it 33? I think it was 33.
33, yes.
Yeah.
So we are a third of the way through all the counties in North Carolina.
Yeah, what we're trying to do is we're trying to stay at least one night in all 100 counties in our motorhome that we have nicknamed the Squatch. But if you want to see more of our adventures and our travels, then just check out our YouTube channel, and you'll be able to see a whole lot more and other ghost stories and urban legends. But let's go ahead and let's get started with this one. Roan Mountain. Roan Mountain stands right on the border between North Carolina and Tennessee, about 1 hour west of Banner Elk. Roan Mountain is not just one mountain, but 5-mile-long ridgetop that reaches its highest elevation, a Roan high top nearly 2 miles above sea level. This long ridge is covered with shady balsams and rhododendrons. Now, rhododendrons, they had a festival
This weekend,
and we missed it. We didn't know they were having it, but rhododendrons are a really big thing around this area. But it says that rhododendrons that fill the hills with beautiful patches of pink and white when they are in bloom. But some people say that there's more than immediately appears along this high ridge. Some say that on the heights of Roan Mountain, supernatural voices can be heard. The wind is powerful on Roan Mountain. In 1799, the survey team that was sent out to determine the border between North Carolina and Tennessee noted when passing through the area that the wind had worn large holes in the face of the rock on top of the mountain. That's a pretty good strong wind.
That is very strong.
That's amazing. That's absolutely amazing. As European settlers began to descend on the area in the early 19th century, stories soon began to be told that the wind that whipped around Roan Mountain carried something else with it. They said that when you stood at the highest points along the ridge, you could hear voices singing in the wind. It goes on to say, but no one agreed what kind of singing it was. Some said it was the sound of a beautiful angelic choir, that the voices were ones of heavenly beauty. Some said that Roan Mountain was the place where the angels gathered to practice singing for the Christian Judgment Day, that on Roan Mountain could be heard the sounds of heaven. Others disagreed. They said that the sounds that called out on Roan Mountain were an unearthly wailing, the sounds of demons and tormented souls crying in pain and torture. They said that the voices of Roan Mountain were echoes coming from hell.
Well, that's
And
a stark contrast.
yeah, that's a big contrast. And so that don't even come. Neither one of them come close to the other one.
No.
I mean, you're talking. They're really hearing something
Polar
different.
opposites.
Polar opposite here. And so it goes on. In 1878, Colonel John T. Wilder, a Union Army officer during the Civil War who had settled in Tennessee after the fighting had stopped, noticed the growing attraction of the Blue Ridge Mountains as a tourist destination. By that time, Asheville and Hot Springs Mountains, haunted hot springs is what it says, but the hot springs, going back to Hot Springs, we've been to Hot Springs, North Carolina. There is a natural hot spring that does come up from the earth. And so if you ever get a chance to visit Hot Springs, North Carolina, they do have some that you can visit out there. But going on, it says that hot springs were both already well-established stops for people seeking beautiful views and cool summer air. Wilder realized that Roan Mountain had spectacular views and was also now easily accessible by the newly built East Tennessee and Western North Carolina Railroad. So Wilder built the Cloudland Hotel on top of Roan Mountain and hoped to draw visitors from across the country. The 166-room hotel offered full-service, beautiful views, and reasonable rates at only, guess what? $2 a day.
Oh my goodness.
$2 a day, $10 a week,
Wow.
and $39 a month.
Wow.
That's a big contrast to what we're having today. But it says it also sat directly on top of the borderline between Tennessee and North Carolina. At that time, consuming and selling alcohol was illegal on the North Carolina side of the property, but legal on the Tennessee side. It says to keep things straight, a wide white line was drawn down the center of the dining room, even dividing the central banquet table in half to let patrons know exactly where they could enjoy a drink. According to legend, the sheriff of Avery County spent a good deal of time hanging around the dining room, keeping his eyes peeled for anyone who strayed over the border into the North Carolina holding a drink. 1 foot across the state line would immediately result in a very stiff fine, get this, payable on the spot in cash. So I wonder how much money he kind of pocketed off of this.
Does it say how much the fine was? Like $5 or something?
I don't. It don't say. It don't say. But I think it's kind of funny because you think in some of these shows where some of these old comical shows where they show, okay, this is my line and your line. You know, this is your half and this is my half, and I'm gonna draw this line in between.
Yeah.
I could just see this big white line drawn in between. It was right over a table.
Wow.
So he was waiting in there. Anybody that stepped across that, they're now in North Carolina holding an alcoholic beverages, and they got fined.
Wow.
So it goes on to say, but it was guests at this hotel who had some of the most notable encounters with the strange music of Roan Mountain. Henry E. Colton, a geologist and naturalist, visited the mountain in 1878 and there recorded that he did hear a clear and distinct sound like the humming of 1,000 bees. Can you imagine? Now, I used to keep honeybees. I know what 1,000 or more, 1,000, several thousand honeybees sound like. It's a. I mean, you can tell. But now this is distinct. One person said, or some people were saying, they thought it sounded like angelic heavenly choir. Other people said it sounded like
screaming from hell,
wailing in hell. And then you got another person saying, well, it sounds like 1,000 bees. And so, but listen, it says, when standing on the mountain, he attributed this sound to electrical energy generated by the friction of air currents rising from the valley. He says, it says another visitor who trekked out from the hotel in the late 19th century had a completely different experience of the phantom music. This young man hiked out onto the mountain on a gloomy day against Wilder's warnings and soon found himself caught in a raging thunderstorm. As the wind around him raged, he began to hear unearthly howls and moans calling from the air around him. He took shelter in a cave where he found himself confronted by much more than he had bargained for. In the cave, the voices didn't cease, but grew even louder. The air around the young man soon began to be filled with spectral visions, gashed and torn bodies bearing the marks of torture and floated around him. Their screams of torment filled the air as the hideous shapes danced around him. The man passed out from fear. When he awoke, he found his clothing was torn and as white as if it had been bleached. The man returned from the cave convinced he had seen a vision of hell. People say they hear the phantom choir of Roan Mountain singing to this day. And to this day, some hear angelic voices and some hear tormented screams. It's said that the sounds are most often heard after a thunderstorm has passed through the valley. Some say that it's the wind moving through the balsams. Some say it's something not of this world, and that whether you're the voices of the angels, well, I think it's supposed to mean, and whether you hear the voices of the angels or the demons on Roan Mountain, it is a taste of what awaits you in the next world. So what they're saying is, if you're hearing an angelic choir, you're going to go to heaven. If you hear demons, then you're going to go to hell. And so again, this is what they started believing. It said there's another unusual phenomenon associated with Roan Mountain. Although this one is entirely natural, multiple people have reported seeing circular rainbows in the sky above the mountain. While all rainbows are full circles, rainbows are also very large and form the perspective of the viewer. The arc of the bow is most often interpreted by intersecting with the earth. While this is, while this is something that is often seen by airline pilots flying above the high ground, it's only from very high altitudes when atmospheric conditions are exactly right that the full circle of the rainbow can be seen from the surface. Roan Mountain seems to have just the right conditions to make it one of the few places on the planet where this can happen. That would be interesting to see. The Cloudland Hotel closed early in the 20th century, and the building was demolished and the land sold to the National Forest Service. Today, Roan Mountain is protected forest land, and the Appalachian Trail crosses the top of the ridge. Its beauty is open and enjoyable to anyone who cares to take a challenging hike through the hills, and to anyone who may be prepared to hear voices singing to them from outside of this world. And that, my friends, is the story of the Phantom Choir of Roan Mountain. And so, what do you think?
Well, you know what this reminds me of? Pisgah Inn. There's a video on YouTube of these people that are staying at Pisgah Inn, and you can hear the wind wailing through there.
Yeah.
And that is, you said there was did you say there was a valley?
Yeah.
It's something about like when maybe the wind hits the mountain or something. Yeah. It like whistles or wails.
You know, I didn't think about that.
That
Pisgah Inn does have one. That Pisgah Inn. Guys, if we can find that video, I will attach that video to the description on here.
It's just a few seconds long. It's not like, or maybe a minute.
And that's probably what this is. That's probably what this is, because the geological, how it's situated, the wind comes up and it has like a howling sound to it. Now I will admit this, that one in Pisgah, that was a spooky sound.
It was very spooky.
That was wild to hear.
Yes.
Because they were out on this deck and they're way up, and you're hearing this wind, and it is it's so stereotypical of every haunted house movie. You're hearing that. I mean, it's really got a spooky sound to it. But yeah, I didn't think about that. That's probably what this is. That's probably most likely. But hey. I tell you what, you get up there and say, hey man, what do you hear? I hear angelic voices. Yeah, me too, man. Yeah, me too. Hey guys, I wish you, I hope that you've enjoyed it. I wish all my travelers safe travels. And
if anybody's been to Roan Mountain, let us know if you've heard the wind.
Let us know.
The voices.
Yeah, we're going to have to check that out. But then again, guys, be sure to check this story and other real creepy stories at www.northcarolinaghost.com. And you guys take care, and I hope you hear the angelic voices.
Good night.
Bye-bye.